So we'll get started. We are recording it and we'll share it to anyone who has registered. So for those who don't know me, I'm Edwina Warby. So I am a client manager with Black Box. And then we've also got Bill Mitchell, who I'm sure most of you are familiar with, founder and CEO of Optiweigh. So I guess background to this webinar, we have worked with Optiweigh over the last 12 months to build out an integration so that data can flow through to Black Box automatically. So we had a lot of clients that are using Optiweigh on property, and some have more than one unit. So we've built a integration, a direct API, so that the data comes across every morning at 3 a.m. So when you're having your morning coffee, you can either check your Optiweigh dashboard or jump into Black Box and see both of your on-farm data and your Optiweigh combined. So I'll get started and hand you over to Bill. Today, we will run through, I guess, what's Optiweigh, and then also what is Black Box and how that Optiweigh data is flowing through to Black Box. There'll be plenty of time for questions. So because it is a webinar format, you'll have an option to type in the Q&A down the bottom. So just pop any questions in there and we'll answer them as we go along. Don't put them in the chat, or you won't have access to put them in the chat. It will only allow you to put them in the Q&A. So just type any questions that you have in there, and we'll answer them as we go along. And then we'll also have plenty of time at the end as well. So I'll hand over to you, Bill.
Thanks, Edwina. G'day, everyone. Hello to those people I know. I know a fair few of you, I think, from looking at the list, and some that I don't. For those that I don't, Bill Mitchell is my name, and I'm filling in today for Max Laurie from our team, who's prepared this, but managed to go 4 years without getting COVID until yesterday or Monday. So we all thought it was just the fact that he went to a wedding on the weekend, but no, he actually has COVID and sends his apologies. But what we wanted to do today was just go through just an overview of what is Optiweigh. I know a lot of people are familiar, but for those that aren't, just cover off on that. But then I also wanted just to talk about what we've learned. I mean, the wonderful thing is dealing with farmers over the last 4 years. Other farmers have taught us so much about what you can do with this information, and that's why we're really excited about the partnership with Black Box, because it just takes this whole information thing to another level. And I just want to share with you a little bit about what we've had come back to us from people about what they've been able to achieve with data. But firstly, just to go through some basics for those who aren't familiar on this next slide. The unit was designed just as a solution as an alternative to getting the cattle into the yards and weighing them. So the idea was that you could tow it to the paddock, drop it out there. It was satellite connected, so you didn't have to worry about wear in the finding service. Quick and easy to drop in the paddock. 3 to 5 days, you would have enough of a sample to have a really accurate indication of the mob average, the min, the max, what the spread of weights was in the mob, and what the ADG was from last time you saw them. And I suppose we've seen a lot of people being able to use that information to really good effect in marketing cattle and then also monitoring them on the way through. One thing that's happened though is we've found that over a third of our customers have got more than one unit, and it's not just because they've got heaps and heaps of cattle. And we started getting a bit of feedback, and what I want to do today was just share a bit of that, because it talks to the value of the data and the power of data in livestock farming. And this next slide is a growth chart that looks pretty good, really. What we found was that people were buying more than one unit because they wanted to leave the unit with the cattle the whole time. which kind of surprised me a bit, because on our place, I always reckoned I could run one unit. I just run it around my lead mobs to know how they're tracking and when I'm going to sell them, how many I've got to sell. But people started leaving it with the cattle the whole time. And this chart looks good. That's, we see a lot that are a heap worse than that. Those cattle have gained weight nicely. They've put on about 60 kilos in 3 months. If you look at it a bit closer, the next slide just shows a couple of spots there within that period where they actually went sideways, or they went down and then back up again. And so this led to a discussion about what's going on and is the damn thing accurate or not, and things. And the farmer in this instance was able to associate those dips with some paddock shifts that went on to, that they stayed too long, or they went onto a paddock that was kind of looked okay, but it was a bit rank, and the impact of it was more than they'd expected. And so if you do the numbers on all that, which we just summarised on the next page, there's actually a month's worth of cattle going nowhere. So really, they gained 60 kilos in 90 days was what they ended up doing, which was 0.66. But if you took out those two flat spots, you could have had them gaining those 60 kilos in 60 days, which is a kilo a day, which is a 50% productivity gain. Really just from having that information about what's going on with the animals. And it covers a whole multitude of sins. This next chart was a brand new unit that we sent. It went south somewhere, I can't remember where, but it showed from day one, it showed these cattle were losing weight, and the cattle looked fine, good feed, didn't know what was going on. And of course, brand new unit, and it's sitting out there in the paddock and in a bit of mud, and there's only 2 feet in the animals, and they're only 2 feet from the animals. So the questions come back, look, this thing's not accurate. It says these cattle are losing weight. Eventually, and so, because we monitor the units, we monitor how the load bars are tracking. We can pretty much tell if you've got a rock stuck under your load bars or something's dropped on there that's affecting them. Eventually, in this case, a vet was called. The cattle had a worm situation going on when they really shouldn't have in that part of the world, but they did, and they were treated, and off they went. So that was that was another example of that, and we've seen these sort of things going on from all. It comes down to nutrition, animal health, environmental. We've seen it with hot and humid weather, and it all just leads into gaining a better understanding of the drivers of weight gain and how you can take actions to improve it. And I suppose we feel that on a farm we're sort of doing the best we can. We've got good looking grass, and the cattle look good, and they're basically, what they're gaining is what the potential is. But what we're starting to see is that people are unlocking opportunities to improve weight gains, and the value of that, when you not only in profit, if you're a trading business, getting them off faster, keeping more grass, replacing them, things, but even when it comes down to things such as calculating your emissions intensity, which we've had to do recently. The buyer of our cattle has started to be wanting to look at this stuff, and one of the biggest drivers of emissions, your kilos of emissions per kilo of beef produced off your place, is highly correlated to the weight gain of any growing animal. So the faster they're growing, the less intensive your emissions are. So understanding these drivers of weight gain is going to create lots and lots of opportunities. And I suppose the better we can get that information back to you in a way that helps you make sense is going to be a really important part of it, and that's why we're really excited about this partnership. Just to again, just to cover on us a bit, I guess, before I hand back to Edwina, we're still in Armidale. We still we have about 550 units out around Australia now. We're starting to export, but I think the really important thing to talk about in this environment, in this arena today, is that we still deal direct with everybody. Max is on the phone to a lot of people regularly, because getting the unit working and generating the data is one thing, but it's understanding what's going on with that data and having somebody to discuss it with and saying, well, how can I make the most out of that? And I guess talking to our team and talking to the black box team and having the two sets of data in the one place should position people really well to start understanding what's going on with their cattle in the paddock and opportunities to improve it. So I think on that note, Edwina, I might hand back to you. I haven't been hit with any questions yet by the look of it.
Yeah, I'll just check if we've got any that have come through. None yet, but just a reminder, I've seen a few people that have just recently joined, so we are recording it and we'll send it through to you if you missed the start. But also there's a little Q&A option at the bottom that you can ask any questions. So the chat will be disabled just because it's a webinar, but if you have any questions for Bill, just pop them in the Q&A down the bottom and we can answer them at the end. But thanks for that, Bill. For those of you who aren't aware of what black box is, I think there's a few on here that are very familiar with it. So we are a system that pulls in data right from the start of the supply chain to the end. So we work with a lot of crush side systems that you're collecting data in the yards. So the likes of Gallagher, TrueTest, Sapien, Stockbook, Stockmate. There's probably a fair few that I've missed in there. And then obviously Optiweigh from the weights that you're getting in the paddock. For the feedlots, we obviously work with feedlot softwares, and then we are also combining that data with any kill sheets from the abattoir. So we have direct integrations with some of those sources of data, and others it's just a case of you saving your raw spreadsheets into black box, and all of that data populates on an interactive dashboard. So we'll run through that in a second, but as I said, we work with a lot of producers to join that on-farm data with feedlot feedback to identify your higher and lower performing animals. And then also those who are sending direct to the abattoir, tying in that kill data and identifying any discounts and relating that back to your on-farm data. So with the Optiweigh integration, we are obviously now getting that live data that you'll see on your Optiweigh dashboard summary as well. So we bring in the session name, the ID, the minimum, maximum, and average weight, and then also the average Optiweigh ADG and how many animals have been seen. So that data, if you want to map it to paddocks in your black box account, we bring in the direct KML files, or we can map the GPS locations so that as soon as we're told where that Optiweigh machine is in the paddock, we can automatically assign it to the paddock that you've got in black box. We bring in a lot of other information that you collect on farms, such as breed, sex, sale yards that you might be buying them from, the breeder pick or the source pick that you're buying it from, classes if you're collecting that additional information, or right down to sire and dam. We have a lot of clients that are TSUing and getting that sire and dam information back, and then can compare daily gains right down to a sire level, including that Optiweigh data. So this example, which we'll run through live in a second, allows the client to split the animals that are in the session by his F1s and his Sanders. So you can easily see what daily gain is happening for both of those different lots of animals, as well as comparing the breeder pick of performance of those animals and filtering down by his females and his steers. We often see those traders might have heifers and steers in the same paddock. So using their Optiweigh daily gain information, they can filter down by those different sexes or different sow yards or different pastures and treatments and things that they're using, or the likes of HGP, non-HGP animals. It's all of that raw data is brought in so that you can make filters on that information. So I've just included a few other screenshots before we run through a live example, but for those of you that are already black box customers and using an Optiweigh, it's as simple as going to your external integrations, logging into your Optiweigh with your Optiweigh details, and then that will come across every morning at 3 o'clock, ready for you to view. So, and then like I said, all of that paddock information is in there. You can also bring up a question we've had a few times is comparing the yard weight with the Optiweigh weight when they next come in. So you can click on any individual animal and it brings up all of that animal's lifetime data. So you can kind of see shrinkage and things based on running them into the yards, which validates the value of an Optiweigh. So I will just jump over to...
Hey, Edwina, can I jump in there on that?
Yep, sure.
You've raised a really important point that getting the most out of an Optiweigh is you need to understand how the weights in the paddock relate to the weights in your yards and the weights at the feedlot. And what the weight that you get is a weight when cattle come off green feed and they've had a feed in the morning and they're not too far from the yards, and then they're weighed as soon as they get there. But a lot of situations are different to that. We now know that if they're on really dry feed and a lot of their moisture isn't coming through their feed, it's coming through drinking, that they'll drop more weight by the time they get to the yards and get weighed. If you're an early bird and you go and weigh them at 4, you go and start mustering them at 4 o'clock in the morning before they've had a feed and a drink, it'll be less. And so I think that's a really cool thing that Black Box have done there to help you understand that relationship, because we know that the people who get the most out of using their Optiweighs know what those calculations are, and we've got quite a few who've in June 9% between the Optiweigh paddock and the feedlot induction weight, for example. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'll butt out now.
No, that's a good point. And like you say, that clearly allows you to see the difference in those weights over time as well, which is really important. So we've just got a question that's come through. Is there an ongoing subscription fee once you have your Optiweigh set up? And Bill has just answered that, yep, $240 per annum, which just covers the satellite connection, but support and access to the data is all part of the unit purchase. So I don't know if you want to add anything further there, Bill, but that question's been answered.
Yeah, no, I think, unless there's any
Perfect.
further queries on that.
Cool. Okay, so we'll dive on to, I've just got a demo example here. You'll see the Optiweigh data is here. So we've just got a filter where you can turn your Optiweigh data on or off. Some like to view the data without that paddock weight, others like to include it. So you've got that option to turn it on or off. So you'll see here, this example has some F1s and some Santa bulls in the same paddock, and they've just been trialing some supplements. So from that session of data, you'll see that they're averaging 1.1 kilo a day and 174 animals have been seen. If we select just the F1s, you'll see that ADG drops back to 1.08. And down in our predicted weights table, now that that's selecting just the F1 animals, you can see that all of their last weights are split into these weight categories. And you can then apply that ADG to each month to predict when they'll be ready. So from that prediction, you can then make a selection of any of those animals. So let's say these ones that are going to be heavier than the rest, we can make a selection of that group of 16, come over here and add them to the list builder. which gives you their EIDs or their visual tags. And you can actually draft off that list of animals. So you can send that back to your crush side to say, as soon as these come through the yards, pull them out. I want to separate them based on their predicted weights in March next year. The other thing is that's important for this client is being able to see, okay, well, let's split out the bulls, the Santa bulls, so he can make a selection on them. You can see year of birth over here, the different ages of animals and how their ADG might differ. So you just make a selection on any of that raw data and it will change the ADG if they've been seen by the Optiweigh. The other interesting thing is making multiple selections. So let's say we want to select that F1 or those F1s and then compare the ADG between animals that he's bred versus some that he's bought. So there's some animals here that are 1.1 versus the ones that he's bought in are doing 1 kilo or 1.03 kilo a day. So it's interesting to filter that data down further. You can go down to paddock level, breed levels. We have some traders that are comparing, say, time of the year that they were inducted and comparing their ADG, or certain breeds or where they've bought them from as well, sale yards and things like that, to relate to the health of the animals. So that's just a quick example of the data that we're seeing that are for animals that are still currently on farm, tying in together that Optiweigh. So obviously once they leave your property, you've got the growing performance dashboard, which kind of looks back at that historical data, and you can compare ADGs on animals and things like that, tying it in with like your feeder price or your carcass price to give you a gross margin. You can then sort of break that gross margin down by animals that you've bought versus like your own bred animals performance, things like that. So I won't go into the rest of our dashboards today, like where you can link your carcass data back. I'm happy to chat to you about that further. It was mainly just to focus on that data where that Optiweigh is coming in on farm. So if there's any questions on that, happy to answer anything around that, or in particular how that Optiweigh data is coming through. So we've just got a question, do you have to enter all of those sale prices manually? So we have a few different ways of bringing in the sale prices. So whether it's a feedlot induction, usually you get a feedlot induction file of all of those animals with their induction price. So whether it's $1 per kilo or $1 per head, we can ingest that information. Otherwise, we see a lot of clients who just use an NLAS transfer file and apply a price to all of those animals. If it's carcass data, that's obviously straight from the kill sheet. So you've usually got a price on there. If it's a private sale though, depending what it's through, some of the sale yard systems are now giving us reports. So we have an integration with AgriNouse where we can easily just pull an export of the sale information out per individual EID, which makes it a lot quicker for the client just to bring that data in automatically. Otherwise, if you don't get that data broken down by individual EID, it's just a case of using the either a session file or an LAS transfer report to apply a price against it. Okay, we've just got another one. How does Black Box handle cattle in the mob that have not self-weighed? So that's a good question. Any of the animals on our dashboards have to have had a weight to be seen, except for our herd inventory, which only requires its EID to be scanned. It doesn't have to have a further data point. But all of the cattle that have been weighed show on the dashboards. If they have only had a crush side weight, you'll only see their crush side weight. If they have an Optiweigh weight, that obviously updates. But for the animals that have had it, I guess that's the value in being able to select a group of animals on the dashboard and apply that Optiweigh ADG to those animals, as you know that they're kind of in the same group, but they haven't been seen on the Optiweigh. So I hope that answers your question. any more questions? Or if there's anything in particular that you'd like to ask Bill or myself, feel free to reach out. I've just popped our details on the screen.
We've got off scot-free, Edwina.
I think we put them to sleep, Bill. Hopefully not. They've all gone out to order a second at Optiweigh. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, we might wrap it up there, but feel free to reach out to either of us. As I said, we will be sending this recording out for anyone who couldn't jump on. But thanks so much for joining, and we will chat to you guys soon.
Thank you, everyone.